My name is Sarah Lienza, and the next 20 slides are based on the book Where Good Ideas Come From by Steven Johnson. Steven Johnson breaks down where good ideas come from into 9 categories: Reef City Web, the adjacent possible, liquid networks, the slow hunch, serendipity, error, exaptation, platforms, and the 4th quadrant. In Reef City Web and the adjacent possible, basically, what Johnson describes for Reef City Web is that it's just a simple standard evolution of technology. One of the most clear examples that he gives is the evolution of the television, starting from reels, going from black and white to color, and then eventually to these high-definition televisions. In the adjacent possible, one of the best quotes that I thought best represented this topic was the limits and the creative potential of change and innovation. Basically, in the adjacent possible is when new ideas expand with every new door you open, almost comparable to a maze or a puzzle. You start in one room, and then each new door you open leads somewhere better and clearer. Liquid networks and the slow hunch. Liquid networks basically says an idea is not a single thing. It's more like a swarm of things. In the book, he says connections are key to wisdom. Good ideas have signature patterns in the networks that make them. Everything that happens in your brain is literally a network. It's a network of neurons. For the slow hunch is a failed spark that needs to collide with another failed spark in order to be successful. Basically, it's an idea that starts out as partial and incomplete and eventually develops into something complete. It's basically like the cliche phrase, 2 heads are better than 1. Error and acceptation. Error says being right keeps you in place, being wrong forces you to explore. This is definitely one of my favorite quotes from the book. The one thing that it made me think of, and I'm quoting a movie that I'm thinking of, but in the movie, one of the characters says sometimes it takes a lot of wrong answers to get to the right one. And on page 137, it basically says just that in a much more detailed format. Acceptation was coined by the evolutionary biologists Stephen Jay Gould and Elizabeth Verba. And part of their direct quote is, an organism develops a trait optimized for specific use, but then the trait gets hijacked for a completely different function. Basically, it's a theory of multiple uses. Platforms and the 4th quadrant. I'm going to breeze through these as I did not think they were, the most functional ideas, but platforms basically it provides a base from which ideas emerge. And in the 4th quadrant, it basically explains this more financial / scientific aspect where you start out in a market and an individual and eventually go to a non-market and a network where you're working with, a lot more ideas and people. Moving right along, I did breeze through the 8 topics that I just covered, but the one that stood out to me the most was serendipity. But before I get into that, I thought this was very appropriate. As imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name, and that is William Shakespeare from A Midsummer Night's Dream. Johnson provides this particular quote right in the beginning of the book before any introduction. So serendipity is a noun, and it means it is an aptitude for making desirable discoveries by accident. So in the magical world of teaching, I related to this the most because I personally believe that that's how educators survive, on accidental connection or serendipitous moments of epiphanies. As contemporary novelist John Barth says, you don't reach serendip by plotting a course for it. You have to let out in good faith for elsewhere and lose your bearings serendipitously. Serendipity is built out of happy accidents, to be sure, but what makes them happy is the fact that the discovery you've made is meaningful to you. As an educator, sometimes brainstorming doesn't work for me and only causes me frustration. It's when something unexpected happens that not only turns out to be better than the original thought, but also makes me feel good about what I'm trying to accomplish. Continuing to quote from the book, serendipity needs unlikely collisions and discoveries, but it also needs something to anchor those discoveries. The challenge, of course, is how to create environments that foster these serendipitous connections on all the appropriate scales in the private space of your own mind, within larger institutions, and across the information networks of society itself. Therefore, because our minds contain a countless number of ideas that can be unleashed at any moment, we have to help ourselves, quote unquote, unlock the door in the adjacent possible and allow these clusters of neurons fire at the right moment.